So we are live for curriculum, folks.
We are live for curriculum. Curriculum committee is. I drew a blank. I call this meeting to order at 7:10. Roll call. Melissa Bacon. Okay. She is here, though. Anastasia Ferguson, I am here. Wes Finney is excused. Adam Tangway. Angela Tardif. Judith Vassell. She's on her way back in. Vivian Walker Vivian is excused. We have a quorum of 5 board members. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none. Approval of the minutes from April 8th. Melissa motioned. Adam second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Motion carries. There is no old business. New business. ESEA project planning.
Perfect, thank you. So tonight is our presentation to the RSU 57 community regarding the ESEA allocation, which is essentially our title funding, our Title I, Title II, and Title IV funding that we receive from the federal government in support of our programs and the work that we do with our students. And so tonight marks the beginning of our public comment period on our use of these funds. The public comment period will remain open until June 13th, 2025. It'll be linked in this presentation. There's also a QR code being displayed as part of the slideshow that links to the same place. It's an opportunity for folks to provide public comment. I don't see any members of the public here this evening to provide comment in person. So I'm going to give a brief overview of the title funding and the uses that are related to them. And we're in a particularly challenging spot where we sit right now, because usually by the time that we have to have a public comment period, we have our projections of what the estimates are that we expect our district to be receiving. And I attended, I think it was 2 weeks ago, within the last 10 days, let's say, I attended the federal grant training put on by the Maine Department of Education, where they shared with us that this is the latest they have received those projected, or they've been without, I should say, the latest projected allocations. And so that puts schools in a challenging spot, because we're trying to plan for this. We need to make sure that we meet our criteria for the public comment periods based on what the use is going to be, so that we can solicit feedback. So I'm hopeful. I expect that we will have some sense of those amounts within that public comment window. Certainly we could expand them if we need to, but we do have a deadline to get our applications in. And so we're just going to be working on a really tight window. So I'll get into some of the details here in a second. But before I do that, let's start with an overview of the title, just to kind of refresh folks on what the uses of these funds are intended to be for. So for Title I, the purpose of these funds is to provide all children a significant opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high-quality education, and to close educational achievement gaps. Programs and services provide customized instruction and curricula that help students meet academic standards and take an active, engaged interest in what they can learn and do. What they learn and can do. So our use in the district, this is primarily in support of our instruction, is really what I like to think of this as. Our largest share of the allocation typically goes to our Title I, and we have school-wide programs. Title II funds, their use, the purpose of those funds is to increase the academic achievement of all students by helping schools and districts improve teacher and principal quality. So typically these would be projects that fund professional development for teachers and school leaders in support of those educational outcomes. Title IV funds provide funding to improve students' academic achievement by increasing the school district's capacity to provide all students with access to a well-rounded education, improve school conditions for student learning, and improve the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy of all students. We'll talk a little bit more about Title IV and our use of that in a minute. So I want to be really explicitly clear and call your attention to what you're looking at right now. You'll notice at the top that's fiscal year 25. That's the school year that we're operating under currently. The state of Maine in our recent training had advised us to think about our funding in terms of fiscal year 26 to be flat. That's kind of what we should be using in the back of our mind while we await what those projected allocations are going to look like. So I thought it might be helpful for us to show you kind of what those allocations were in FY25, so you get a sense ballpark wise of how much we're talking. But I want to be really, really clear to say this is not a projected allocation as we would typically be doing in this meeting. This is the amounts that we were awarded in this current school year. So this year in Title I, we had 646,803 and 9 cents. In Title II, 157,551.93 cents. Title IV, $65,475.33. You'll notice in the allocation amount column that we did transfer some of those funds for various reasons. So you have the flexibility in some of these areas to be able to transfer into other areas, specifically Title I, to support those projects. So in this fiscal year, we transferred $115,000 of the $157,551 was transferred into Title I, leaving a remaining $42,551.93 that's actually in that budget line for projects related to professional development. So that's the actual amount that was in that account when we started the year, was the $42,551 with the $115 being transferred up. In Title IV, we took the full amount and transferred that into Title I. I wasn't here in the process of the grant process as it went on with the application for last year, but I can say that it's really common for schools to take the Title IV funds and transfer those out, and then also similarly with Title II as well. Title IV in particular comes with a set of restrictions on the ways that you can use funds. There are minimums in certain areas with technology and whatnot. It's not exactly at face value, and so my guess would be that the district opted to prioritize the instructional supports. So if we're looking at the funding that you currently see, if we were to assume that, what the state says is going to be accurate and we're in roughly those same areas, I would probably make a similar move with those funds. I would probably look to support instruction at the highest level, maintaining some of those funds to ensure we have our adequate professional development resources. But I do think based on this current year spending, that's completely reasonable based on the needs that we have and making sure students get what they need as the first priority and then our staff to follow. It's still a healthy amount for us to be able to do what we need to do with professional development, and we would certainly make sure that we had that adequate amount in there. So that brings us to a grand total for those funds of $869,830.35. So our process, like I said, is going to be a tight application process. We need to turn around, and then all of the funds would need to be expended through September 30th of 2026. Our current performance reports run in a cycle where those are due in November, and that's where we basically report out on it. The important piece to take away from it is that the goal for the district will remain that we want to support the student instruction intervention and our staff professional development and the family engagement to the level that we currently do. As you know, you're probably familiar, we have family engagement nights that we host throughout the district. Our staff do a great job of planning those and attending those, and they're well attended. They're really fun nights. They're interdisciplinary opportunities that support math and reading skills and development for students, but they also weave in a little bit of the social studies and science. I know the curriculum department has heard about some of that work previously. We have engaged throughout the year in a revision of our comprehensive needs assessment, which is the document that we use to inform our grant application for the Title I funds, all of the title funds. We go through the comprehensive needs assessment process, which involves conversations with stakeholders. We invite, you'll notice in the form for the feedback form, if you're interested in being part of that family advisory, you can certainly sign up to do that and be part of those conversations. We also solicit feedback from our family engagement nights to get a sense of how those work for students and a greater sense of their Title I informed experience. And so that is all helpful information, and I would encourage the community to provide that feedback as you have those opportunities to do so. So our process for this comprehensive needs assessment will be to look this year at the progress that we made toward our goals for last year and then revise and make sure that we're doing good goal writing for the upcoming year. We have a lot of that work that's already underway. I think the greatest challenge that we face right now is the lack of information that we're getting in terms of the projected allocations coming forward, but we are ready to act on that and get the application rolling so that we can make the most use of those funds. One of the important criteria with getting the application completed early and getting that taken care of is so that we can ensure we maximize the window of time we can spend. We can't obligate funds until we have what's called substantial approval. And that's basically the department's first look to say, this is overall pretty good. It's not uncommon that they will return aspects of an application and just say, maybe you need to tweak this, or we'd like a little bit more detail with that. But the sooner we get that initial stamp of approval is when we can begin the spending. And so we want to make sure that we are taking advantage of that and spending on a responsible basis, of course. I will say, in terms of the work that we do with this, I'm appreciative for many levels of the work and the way that this is spent. I appreciate the fact that we go through this process where we have conversations, where we can regularly review data. It forces us to take a close look at what we're providing and think critically about the use of these funds. There are lots of voices that are represented in that process, and it's not an easy process. It's really time consuming. It requires a really close eye to the details of it and the bottom line. And ultimately, I think it delivers some important enhancements and work for our students. So I'm appreciative to all of the many folks who do that everywhere from administration in our business office as they manage the invoicing and the billing and the budgeting of all of this, all the way down to the classroom work that's done by our interventionists and our ed techs and folks who commit their time and their evenings to those family engagement nights. So I'm grateful for that. Are there any questions as we are here now about the information that we at least have in the moment related to the funds, Melissa?
Just to clarify, so there's no like set date that these funds would be allocated, like say, everybody that gets funds is going to be allocated on July 1 or August 1, whatever.
No, they don't, in terms of hearing what our projections are. Is
Yeah.
that what you mean?
Well,
No.
so how long is the process before we get that substantial approval?
So the comprehensive needs assessment is kind of the work underway. We know that we can predict that. I do think the templates will change for us. Those will be not things that are surprises to us. The allocation, it's one of those things, like I said, they've never seen it this late, so they generally would ballpark it, but it's earlier than we are at now. Applications are due in August, so I think it'll be before then, I hope, but I think we are all in sort of an uncertain holding pattern. And so we're just trying to do the best we can to be proactive about what are our needs, where do we think this is going to go. Again, like I said, the state is kind of telling us plan as if it's about the same. And in that case, I can't see us making any dramatic shifts in the use of the funding unless that is presented to us. And that's sort of the place that we'll land. But we are acting under the guidance of the Maine DOE at this point in time and just trying to be as planful as we can. Their turnaround, it's dependent. I think it's usually a first in, first out. So when they receive those first applications, obviously there's going to be a benefit to us having done some of that groundwork so that we can be at that front of the line in their review. But these documents are reviewed by the DOE in kind of the order they're received. And the ones that have more edits to return, it's just going to take you a little bit longer sort of at those district levels to make sure that you're in a good spot. I feel confident that we should be able to turn ours around internally quickly and then be ready to act as soon as we can. It's not, it's sort of uncharted in terms of a timeline, but everybody is in the same boat that we're in right now. The big thing for us, and even in this meeting in terms of soliciting our public comment and whatnot, really paying close attention to what are the things that we need to do, because the timing is such that we won't have meetings to talk about this once we actually know those projections. And so we're trying to meet those obligations that we have. But like I said, our goal will be to leave that public comment forum. It's a form that you can find on Google. or that will link to these materials to be able to solicit that feedback in the meantime. And we'll do our very best to maximize the amount of time folks have to provide us with comment and make sure that we are submitting the application in a timely manner to get our substantial approval, which will allow us to then start obligating funds. And what they mean by that is essentially engaging in contracts and that sort of work. So we're very motivated to get this taken care of so we can maximize the use. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. I feel like for years upon years, for lots of different things in education, we've been saying, well, we've never really done it this way. And well, we're just going to have to build the plane as we fly it and all those other silly kind of cliches. But we are in that spot and we're not alone while we wait it out.
Does this have anything to do with any decisions at the federal level?
What do you mean by that in terms of the timeline?
Getting funds allocated, period.
Yeah, so essentially the way the process works is that the federal government will notify the state. The state is the grantee, and then we are a sub-grantee of those funds. So the state right now cannot provide us with the amounts because they don't yet have them from the federal government. So once they receive the statewide allocation, they will do their formulas, and then they will advise us of our projected allocations as well, which ultimately still need to be finalized beyond that, but they at least offer us a starting point, and we're not at that point yet.
So it all has to do really with federal allocations.
Yep, and that would be true in any year, in any given year. That's the process that's used, is the federal entity will pass on that information to the state and the state to the schools. It's just that the timeline is more delayed this year than they have previously seen.
This just seems to be a different year because we have a different federal education director.
Yep, and I think staffing wide, we've seen disruption. I can't speak for folks on a broad level, but I can tell you from a high level, we've seen lots of shifts, I think, with an administrative change. So staffing at the Department of Education at the federal level, I couldn't really speculate, but I would say if there's staffing there that might be impacting the timeline, I'm not sure. We haven't really been given a rationale for that. Our focus really is on ensuring that we are ready when we have the information we need to move forward, that we as a district are ready to go and to make the most of it for the interest of our students.
So if they were to cut back those funds quite drastically, that would impact us.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Any other questions?
Seeing no other questions. Lost my agenda. We'll move on to the community forum debrief. Do you have questions, concerns, comments? I'd like to see more public here, but it is what it is. Wow.
I'll just kind of share my thoughts. I'm really grateful for the work that's happened. We may not have had the turnout that we had hoped for, but I always appreciate opportunities to share and celebrate and take the time to reflect on what we've done. So I'd love to do that in front of a room of 300 people, but if we have a room of 3 people and a bunch of administrators who are committed and get to hear what's going on throughout the district, I think that's a win for us and our work. It gives us an opportunity to thank our staff and thank our students for engaging, think about where do we want to be next year in this work. I will say I came in after the work of the strategic plan had been completed, and I think it's one of the most valuable things in directing me with what I do. I've been in positions where I don't necessarily have a document to guide our thinking and guide priorities and decision making. And so it's been really nice to know there were lots of voices that were included, at least in the formation of the document. and that it does give us sort of that playbook to guide where are we going, what do we prioritize. It's really nice to have that focal point. Some of the things that have come out of it are really, really big. The shared experiences has changed things for kids. The work that's come out of MTSSB means it's just a constant state of improvement. I don't think that that's something that we're ever going to say no longer needs our attention. I think it's given us an opportunity to focus on that and have some shared language from building to building. What is a golden ticket? What is it? What is a Mustang? The awards, the bus passes and things that they're doing as I stumble over the language, but it really does give us an opportunity to practice that and share the language among the administrators, the teachers, and the students as they move through with us. So I agree. I think it's really unfortunate in some of these community forums we've had, whether it's the SEL, the mental health forum was a little bit better attended. It is really unfortunate, but I hope that folks will see us continue to do the work and eventually we will have more of that involvement. I am grateful to the administrators and staff who committed their time to be here though this evening. I think it's really important work that we're doing and it's important for everybody to know what's going on throughout the district at all levels. So grateful for that and the support of the committee in this work.
I wanted to agree with Dr. Doyle that it was nice to see, even though I would have wished for more community members, and it was nice to see in this audience up here, administrators and board members. So it was nice to see that those people were at least interested.
I agree. Any other comments, Adam?
Yeah, I think I don't know if we have a way to answer this, but it's looking at how much of it is just the difficulty in getting people committed on busy evenings and that sort of thing, and how much of it is there any gap still in our ability to communicate effectively to help people understand what the event would be. And I don't know the answer to that, but if I think that's a struggle we have, is not just getting it out there, but getting it out there in a way that people notice it and think and digest it and understand what it is and what the opportunity is. I still think we'll struggle with getting people. I mean, we see it everywhere. We had today the debate for the Waterboro, or not debate, but get to know your candidates night last time I ran, and there were no people that showed up for that, for the town of Waterboro too. So like, it's difficult to get that, but it would be interesting to see, because we do occasionally, when you hear the negatives, it's the people saying they didn't know about something, and it seems difficult because it feels like my phone's blowing up all the time with community newsletter information and emails and everything else. But it's also, I know part of that's because of my involvement. But anyway, something to think about is, are there ways to reach out to get information out to the community, to maybe drive that engagement or hear back from them on better ways to do it?
I mean, I know I saw this community forum pushed everywhere. I mean, this is the first time, and this has nothing to do with past administration. This is the first time that I've seen a bigger push to the community. I got it from the high school newsletter. I got it from the elementary level. I got it from the school board level. I get questioned on it through Facebook, and I'm like, just come attend, come see it, come attend. But I think it was a bigger presence this time around, which is fantastic. What we can do different, I don't know.
So I'll just remind folks, I think we can state it again. Many of you already know it, but if this is the first time folks are watching and we're talking about the debrief, just as a reminder, we did push out through newsletters. We've talked about it. We've issued save the dates for weeks. We have sent mailers to, I think it was 60 plus community members who are present for the career fair, many of whom said that they would like to continue to be engaged. Those were sent as postcard physical mailers. We've pushed it out on all the socials. I have seen board members reshare those communications, and it's been in the school and community newsletters, as you mentioned before, for a number of weeks. And I do think it's a balance. I think I had lots of good intentions myself in the places where my own kids have been. Sometimes the dates just don't work out. And so I'll make the plug and remind folks here, we will, we've recorded it, which was an intentional act on the committee's part. So we will publicize it one more time. We have the form, the survey with the feedback questions available to folks for a period of time. We'll continue to monitor that. If there are takeaways throughout, I'll certainly share that information as we go. If I think it's something that we can kind of hold on until the next time the committee meets, then that'll be, for us to decide based on the feedback we receive. But there are still opportunities for folks who may not have been able to attend in person, and we'll be actively watching for that feedback should it cross our desks. But I do think it is, it's a question. We struggled a little bit with a board with the committee in determining what was it that we wanted to do. And I think the work of the strategic plan is worthy. Who knows, maybe those view counts will increase over time as folks have their curiosity is piqued. We can point them back if they ask about the strategic plan. I think one of the important pieces, again, I talked about language before, but it's getting the language out there and consistently referring back to this document so that folks understand why we are doing what we're doing and why this is the cornerstone of our daily work. So who knows? Maybe there will be triple the engagement in the online versions of it. And I would love to see that. I think every voice matters. And we're certainly, as Dr. Markey had mentioned in the forum, willing and eager to engage with the public and get their feedback. So that's been our plan thus far.
Yeah, and I did want to say it did seem like Dr. McKee, you had said that we usually hear things when it's negative, right? I think that's a big piece of it. Even at last week with the budget meeting, that was highly attended for that, which is still small compared to the number of people that live in the community, the number of voters, and the push was there's concern around taxes, but there was even people bringing that up over and over again were saying like they don't want to cut anything we're spending because they feel like we're doing the right things or heading the right direction, or generally that was the feel, which is nice to hear. So it is hard to pull in when it's when it's not bad news, I guess. So
I just want to say, kind of to go along with what Anastasia said, I don't think that we could have pushed it any harder than we did. I think the collaborative effort on, from all the way from Dr. Markey and Dr. Doyle to the board to administration, staff, students, into the community on every avenue was spot on as far as what we needed to do. And so I think the one thing that we have to remember in the future is that one time doesn't dictate a pattern. You have to keep going. You have to keep trying. You have to keep pushing. We push forward in the future and hope for the best. Maybe we get 5 people next time. Maybe we get 50, but we're not going to know until we try. And another note, Dr. Doyle, thank you so much for all the work that you did on this. I know that it was very time consuming and a lot of work, but we appreciate it.
I'm sitting here thinking, and I don't want to keep you guys too long, so I'm going to be very quick. We tend to communicate a lot to stakeholders that are connected to our schools. The one area that I think, as I reflect right in this moment, is we likely could have put something out in the newspapers and things, because we actually are not. And I think the same is true for budget. We inundate people that are in our communication zones, but people don't typically go to print media, but the people who go to print media typically don't go to technology-based media as much. So I think in the future, whether it's for the budget, Colin, or whether it's communication points related to curriculum or any other items, I think we want to put those invitations out through the newspapers, the local papers. No one's going to look at the Portland Press and then say, oh, hey, we're going to go to, but the local papers or community boards. I took it as a, personally, when people would say it hasn't been communicated about the budget. Well, for people with kids to say that, I think would be really, and I heard from a lot of parents saying, oh, we hadn't heard about the budget. I don't know how that's possible. But there are a lot of folks without children that we can certainly do a better job. So I just want to put that out there.
The flyers that we used and pushed, I think that was at least a start in that direction. And I think that the newspaper is probably not a terrible idea. I mean, it's definitely makes sense for the older community, part of the community that isn't directly associated with our school, like you said.
Just for clarity, Melissa, when you said flyers, do you mean the flyers on the bulletin board flyers that we push through the board? Okay. I wasn't sure if you meant that versus the mailings. I think keeping up with the mailings is important too. I think, the business community connections, we may not have seen anyone from that population, but I think that's probably the best way is to give them something physical. And that's a measured way that's not super expensive. I think if we mailed the entire district, that would look different, but the, that targeted outreach, I think was a good one to do. So we can continue as well with those community board flyers. I know I saw a bunch. I saw them hanging in schools, but I also saw them in businesses around town. That was one thing I left out when I mentioned my overview, but we gave each of the board members 10 copies to distribute within their own spaces. And I think that was an effective way to physically get them out there too. But newspaper, I think we could definitely add. I actually think that was suggested in one of the meetings and I think we just didn't get there. But yeah, I think that would be it. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Convenience stores around town I've seen too. Yep. We can add that for next year.
Any other comments? Questions? Concerns? Okay, seeing none. Our June meeting we will not have it because what we were going to discuss in June, we discussed tonight. So there is no June curriculum meeting. So this is our last meeting of this year. But we all have a meeting tomorrow night, so.
Except me.
You go away. So we are adjourned at 7:42.